I'm Tim Marsh.
I'm Jonathon Green.
And we're the directors of photography on In Plain Sight. And we're going to go through a little bit of a deep dive on the technical back end of what we actually use to make the film.
The cameras we shot this project on is the Blackmagic 6K Pro and the Blackmagic 6K. They both had their own perks and drawbacks, so it was nice to have both, to have the variety, because the 6K is a bit smaller, a bit lighter, but it has the drawback of no internal ND filters. It doesn't have it's got a worse screen. The screen doesn't also articulate. But the 6K Pro has internal ND and the screen, but it's just a lot bigger and heavier, so we couldn't fly it on gimbals or things like that.
Yeah, so the sort of builds that we're using was most of the days we ran an A and a B camera. The A camera would be a 6K Pro, and that would be on sticks or handheld. So we ran that with rails and a matte box. And then the B camera we usually left on a gimbal, which the 6K with a stills lens was kind of the limit of its payload. So in terms of the aerial cinematography, we used a Mavic Air 2, which is a fantastic drone for its money. It's 4K, and it is surprisingly fast and powerful, with great range, and it's about 800 grams-ish, I think, which means you can fly it in most environments with the license that I got, so it's quite flexible as well. So yeah, we shot in 5.7K 17:9 because we could use that extra height on the sensor, because we were cropping in very slightly, and that saved about 1 terabyte in terms of the data that we shot across the whole project, which I think honestly
it's not insignificant.
Yeah, I mean we shot about 5 terabytes, but in terms
on a budget anyway.
Yeah, in terms of the resolution, it's more than enough for what we needed. We're publishing in UHD or HD, so you've still got plenty of latitude for cropping and stabilization and that sort of thing. I mean,
the Alexa shoots 4.5K at the end of the day. You don't need 6K. It's not needed. Lens-wise, we shot on you normally want to get like a series, like a whole set of lenses, they're all from the same manufacturer, from the same set, so you can guarantee they'll cut well. But we had some kind of yeehaw kind of series set we put together. It was made up of a Sigma 20mm 1.8, which is one of the strangest bits of glass I've ever seen in my life. It has no right working as well as it does. Yeah. But if you know what to do with it, then the things you can get out of it are amazing. That was the lens we really flew on the gimbal, because it's not light, but it's a really good gimbal lens because it's 20mm, it's quite wide. At 1.8, you can get some nice shallow depth of field, and it was quite useful for that.
Your focus throw was pretty much 1 meter and then infinity. So you could pretty much focus on one thing in the foreground, and then the rest would just be in focus. The rest would just be infinity, like in terms of your focus pointing. So it's very easy to use on a gimbal, despite having a terrible focus system on it. In other lenses, then we also used Canon Nifty 50-1.8, where we need a very small rig.
We've got a few of those in like different. It's weird because they all should look the same, but they don't. We have
manufacturing tolerances are quite whack on those.
We have 3 of those, and we definitely have the one that we use.
Yeah. Then we also used a Sigma 18-35 art lens, which is a fantastic bit of glass.
Sharp bit of kit, that one.
So sharp, great, really fast lens, 1.8.
Our problem was it was too sharp to cut with some of our other bits of glass.
It was. The only other downside is it's quite a heavy lens for a stills lens, so we didn't use it.
Knock someone out with that thing.
We didn't use it
solid bit of kit.
Too much. We sort of only used that where we didn't have the lens that we shot the majority of the film on, which was...
It's a Mica 35mm Super 35 cinema lens.
T2.1?
T2.1. Solid bit of kit. I saw a video for it on YouTube and was just like, for the money, I don't think I can really top it. So I ordered one. It took like 2 weeks to ship from China. Brought it on. The pub shoot was its first rodeo, I think. We used it for like 2 shots, but the pub was its first rodeo. And all the things on there, like the massive focus throw was really nice. Having an aperture ring that was smooth was really nice. All that kind of stuff it was lovely to have all the perks of cinema lens, but it wasn't the size of a full cinema lens, which was very nice for handheld, that we could get that kind of smaller.
Yeah, but crucially, the main reason why we loved that lens wasn't its ergonomics. The ergonomics are great, but the image, it's incredible for the money. Not only that, there is a big difference between stills and cinema glass. Stills, it looks very photorealistic, which is great if you're shooting a documentary. You've got to ultimately create some sort of otherworldly fourth wall, and you'd be surprised how far a cinema lens and the way that it renders the light actually goes towards that. So that 35 from Micah was actually probably the reason why half our stuff looks as good as it does.
I mean, I think of all our favourite shots, unless it's on a gimbal, that's the lens it's on.
Yeah.
I mean, we learned a lot about how we set up our own cameras off the shoot, as far as like dealing with handheld and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's an oversized DSLR, and that has benefits in the way that if you want to break it down, you can use. It's cheap, but if you want to break it down, you've got this very small little compact package, which when we were shooting the fight scenes, that was great because because the room was so small, I was shooting really wide. I put the camera against my chest and had a screen sort of there, and I could operate in a really compact rig.
Now onto lighting. We had a wide range of fixtures. Mainly, our two main key sources we used were RE 650 watt juniors. Fantastic lights. They are.
You can't go wrong with a Junior or any of RE's tungsten fixtures.
They're pretty. They're just like caveman lights, really. You know,
the quality,
work.
The quality of lights is
they
great.
don't do much else, but it's great.
Yeah. I mean, we could have done with a slightly more powerful key light.
But budget.
We had what we had.
Yeah.
It's all good in the end. So yeah, that's the Juniors. They were beaten up old things, but they put in a shift and they were great to have.
The other lights we're using, we kind of have our own sets of LEDs. I've got these two newer panels, which we've got light in this, one over there, one over there. And those things are, when we use them on Afraid of the Dark, we know those lights backwards. Their definition of white is a little different to each other, but like it's to the point where we know it so well. One's labelled Nick and one's labelled Sony. Like you can use your imagination to figure out the difference.
Yeah, they're very green.
And that one's a bit magenta.
Yeah. I mean, they're cheap lights, but they're great because they're lightweight and they're battery powered, so you can put them anywhere.
And they've got barn doors.
They've got barn doors. There's a surprising amount of output for their size.
I mean, there was the scene of Finch and Reed inside Finch's car in the car park was just lit by one of those. That was it.
Like if you're not battling the sun, these lights do put in a fair bit of a shift.
Especially because we've got pretty fast lenses that we can open up.
But as soon as you try and use them exterior, then during the daytime they're useless.
No. Even our Juniors were useless.
Even the Juniors are useless. You need something at least 2K to battle with the sun.
Another thing was, it's a strangely little known thing, but if you want to diffuse lights very cheaply, very easily, in a way that's so flexible, is toilet paper or any other form of paper works a treat. Put it in front of your light, and as far as how thick the paper is or whatever, the quality of the toilet paper, you get different qualities of diffusion. It's piss cheap, and it's,
It's annoying how well it works. Because you've used blinds, you've used like China balls. China balls are actually quite popular now on bigger sets.
And they are so cheap. As far as motivation, as long as you can invent it and blag that this is where the light's coming from, doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be moonlight. We literally have an RE Junior in a shot posing as a practical light.
We do.
It's fine.
Yeah.
But
especially
as far as contrast is the one thing you want to control, which is so tone dependent. You wouldn't light a comedy like we lit this. Like the point of In Plain Sight, even though there's comedy in it, it's a thriller. You want contrast, you want the shadows, you want areas in the image that the audience and the viewer can't see. So that was kind of the main thing about just trying to do as much as we can to create this really contrasty look, these deep blacks, harsh shadows, all that kind of stuff. Which is why the flat was so painful to shoot in, because it looked like a sitcom.
So in terms of the lighting direction, sort of the artistic direction behind it, we wanted to shoot naturalistic, but we wanted to have a lot of dynamism within the frame. So as you just mentioned, a lot of contrast.
Color-wise, it's pretty faithful.
Color-wise, bang on. We weren't doing any like teal or orange or neon or anything like Hong Kong New Wave with it. But
not like Crystal.
no crystal. But yeah, ultimately it was naturalistic but dynamic, I think was a good way to summarize that.
Yeah. The main thing we worked hard to control was the quality of light and contrast. And beyond that, color we let do whatever the color was going to do. We weren't like, oh, it can't do this at this point of the movie. The location looks like that, the location looks like that at the end of the day.
In night scenes, a lot of our work was creating
enough light to actually shoot.
Enough light to shoot, but I was going to say, in the night scenes, our main problem was creating enough reasons for motivation to actually put in lighting sources. So for example, there's one shot, like the path, where Ruby dies in the first opening sequence, where we've just got these pools of light coming out across the path. If you actually thought about that, why would there be light coming from the bushes? But because of the way we sort of framed it, and it's just the illusion of filmmaking ultimately, the audience sort of suspends belief that they're walking through these pools of light. And it's that sort of thing where sometimes you have to be a little bit creative with your motivation when you're shooting at night. We try to be as naturalistic as possible and motivate it as much as possible, but sometimes you just have to put in light where you need to.
I did not envy you lot on that shoot. I wasn't there for that one. I was elsewhere. I showed up to help with a bit of setup, but I had to go. So I did not envy the crew on that one. So yeah, that was a brief summary of all the tech we used on In Plain Sight. As I said, we would have loved to have more, but this is what we did with what we had, and we're kind of just showing that you can kind of do. If you work hard enough and know how to cut the right corners, you can achieve anything. And that's the motivation, kids. Now, just keep making movies.